What if I told you that the blonde-haired, blue-eyed master race that Hitler was referring to were actually black people or Moors? That the image we know as Hitler is actually Walt Disney, and the first-hand accounts describe Hitler as being a black man.
So to add on to that short that I posted to my TikTok, which was really just a summary of the topic, I wanted to put some accurate visuals to the historical documentation that we're going to be going over in this video. So like I said, Hitler was not a Caucasian man. That person that they show us in all those fake edited images that's supposed to be Hitler, that is really Walt Disney. All of the historical sources describe Hitler as being a black man or a Moor or a blackamoor, and the Aryan master race with blonde hair and blue eyes that he was describing were not Caucasians with those features. He was talking about the blonde hair, blue-eyed Aryan Moors that were really prevalent in his area, the area that he was from rather, in the Austria, Switzerland, Germany area. So just wanted to quickly go over a few historical sources about Hitler's swarthy or black appearance and show some of those historical depictions of those blonde Moors. This is a really mind-blowing topic because this is so far from anything that we were taught or anything that we could even begin to comprehend, given the lies that our minds have been poisoned with our entire lives. It's insane to think that Hitler was, in fact, a black man, a blackamoor from Austria. He was not a Caucasian man, and that the superior race that he was talking about was not Caucasian people. He was talking about a strand or bloodline of Moors that had blonde hair and blue eyes. And you're going to see that these blonde Moors were depicted frequently throughout medieval history, especially in Germany. Here in this newspaper from June 1933, we have a first-hand account describing Hitler's appearance as swarthy. They describe him as the swarthy-faced Austrian. We know he was from Austria. Here he's being described as swarthy-faced. And here in another newspaper from September 1943, Hitler is once again described as swarthy and dark. It reads, "The best manner of that dark and swarthy Nordic Hitler." So we see the words dark, swarthy, and Nordic all used in the same sentence. Here in this newspaper from 1943, Hitler is described as dark, swarthy, and Nordic, which, it's funny because now, given the lies that we're taught that are complete fables and not based on any sort of history at all, we're taught that Nordic people are the pure whites and that they're the pure blonde-haired, blue-eyed Caucasian. When this newspaper from 80 years ago is using words like swarthy and dark to describe Nordic people, it's using words like swarthy and dark to describe a Nordic Hitler. So now they teach us that Nordic people are the pure whites with the blonde hair and the blue eyes. Well, 80 years ago, they were using terms like dark and swarthy to refer to Nordic people. So this newspaper from 1943, which was written while Hitler was still alive, was using terms like dark and swarthy to describe a Nordic Hitler. And in this newspaper from 10 years earlier, Hitler is described as the swarthy-faced Austrian. Now, what does swarthy mean? Here we're in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary. Let's get the definition of swarthy. Swarthy, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion, tawny or black. So newspapers from 1943 and 1933, which were written and published during the lifetime of Hitler, are describing him as having a swarthy face or swarthy complexion. And we just read that swarthy means black. Swarthy being of a dark hue or dusky complexion or black. Now let me ask you, does this person look black to you? 80 and 90-year-old first-hand accounts are describing Hitler as having a swarthy face or swarthy complexion. Swarthy means being of a dark hue or dusky complexion, tawny or black. Does this person look black to you? Hitler was a blackamoor. He was not a Caucasian. He was a Negro. He was one of the last blackamoors of Germany. Here we have in this letter from 1755 written by Benjamin Franklin, yes, the Benjamin Franklin, in which he describes all of the Europeans as having a swarthy complexion. What does swarthy mean? Black. Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionably very small. All Africa is black or tawny. Asia chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, we're talking about Europe now, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. So we already know what swarthy means. Benjamin Franklin in 1755 is saying that the people in Spain, Italy, France, Russia, Sweden, and Germany are of a swarthy or black complexion. Germany is right next to Austria, which is where Hitler was from. Hitler being described as a dark and swarthy or dark and black Nordic man. So of course they told us in an attempt to cover up the truth about this particular topic, they told us that only Caucasians can have blonde hair and blue eyes. But the thing is, Caucasians are the newest, you could say, race on this earth. So all of their genes they had to get from an original Negro man or woman. So those blue eyes that they have, black people had them first because they have to get all of their genes from the original man and woman. Because they're a mutation, because the Caucasian is a mutation of the Negro, blonde hair and blue eyes had to originally be the black man and woman's DNA traits in order for the mutation that is the Caucasian to have them. So they tell us that only Caucasians can have blonde hair and blue eyes, so that we would think that when Hitler was talking about this master race, we would think that he was talking about Caucasian people. But Hitler wasn't even a Caucasian himself. And those blonde hair and blue eyes, those genetic traits were originally the black man and black woman's traits, are originally the black man and black woman's traits, I should say. And that is how the Caucasian is even able to have those traits. Because like I said, the Caucasian is a recessive genetic mutation of the Negro. Straight hair is a genetic mutation. White or pale skin is a genetic mutation. So in order for them to have blue eyes or blonde hair, the original Negro man and woman had to have those traits and carry those genetic traits in order for the mutated Caucasian to have those traits. I say all this to say, that's the reason they told us that only Caucasians can have this blonde hair and blue eyes, so that when we hear Hitler talking about this master Aryan race with those features, we would think he was talking about a Caucasian, when in reality he was talking about blackamoors, Negroes, or black people. Because the black man and black woman carry these genetic traits first, and that's where the mutated Caucasian got those traits from. So here we have this German tapestry from 1455, I believe, and it depicts these blonde-haired Moors. This is from Germany from the 1400s. We just read that the Germans are swarthy, swarthy meaning black. And in this tapestry, the blonde-haired Moors are depicted. So here we have a close-up of this swarthy king and queen in Germany in the 15th century. Look at the blonde hair. The king, he has blonde hair and a blonde beard. The queen also has blonde hair. But look how swarthy or black they made their skin. Look at their hands. Their skin is swarthy or black, but their hair is blonde. I mean, the queen, she's got almost white blonde hair, looking like a Targaryen. The king, he's got blonde hair and a blonde beard. And when you zoom in, their eyes do in fact look blue. So it's crazy that we read over the historical documentation and then you learn these things, that Hitler was really a blackamoor and he was referring to blonde-haired, blue-eyed Moors or blonde-haired, blue-eyed black people. That was the master or Aryan race that he was talking about. And then you find historical depictions of these blonde-haired, blue-eyed Moors. This is from the 1400s, a German tapestry depicting black people or Moors in Germany, ruling Germany. This is the king and queen. Look at the crowns on their head, and they've got blonde hair and their eyes are blue. This is the master Aryan blonde hair, blue-eyed race that Hitler was talking about. He wasn't talking about Caucasians. They just told us that only Caucasians can have those features so that we would assume he was talking about them. No, he was talking about that strand, that family line of blonde hair, blue-eyed Moors that ruled Europe. King and queen, blonde hair, blue eyes, dark, deep, melanated, black, swarthy skin. Here we have another medieval depiction of a noble black woman with dark brown, swarthy black skin and blonde hair. This is the master Aryan race that Hitler was talking about. We see that long German name at the bottom, and we see a black woman with very deep, dark, rich, melanated, swarthy skin and her blonde hair. This is from Germany. Another depiction from Germany, black woman, deep brown, swarthy, melanated skin, and she's got yellow blonde hair. I'm telling you, these traits were originally, these traits are the traits of the original man and woman, being the Negro black man and woman. All other races are a mutation of the Negro man and woman. So we have to carry the traits first for them to be able to have those traits. Those blonde hair and blue eyes, they got from the original man and woman because they're a mutation of the original man and woman. Here we have another German tapestry with a black king. We see his black swarthy skin, see the lips, and the blonde hair sticking out from under his crown. You can see right there under his crown, the blonde afro sticking out from under his crown. These are the people that Hitler was referring to. He wasn't talking about blonde hair, blue-eyed Caucasians. And they've put a lot of work into making sure that when we hear those features, we think of white people. You really should think of black people, because black people had those genes first. German tapestry, black man with a crown and a blonde afro sticking out from under his crown. Another depiction of a Moorish knight from Germany, blonde hair, blonde afro. Another depiction from Germany of a noble Moorish black woman with blonde hair. We see another blonde afro depicted. And yet another German coat of arms from the Middle Ages depicting yet another noble black woman. See the crown on her head? She's got long blonde hair. And yet another coat of arms from Germany. See, these people were from Germany. This is why Hitler was talking about these people. He wanted to reinstate these people. He wanted to keep this line of Moors in power. When he was referring to those blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans, that master race, he was referring to Moors, not Caucasians. We see another deeply melanated, swarthy black woman with a crown on her head and long blonde hair sticking out from under the crown. They even drew it like in little puffs or little clouds to depict an afro. We see her blonde afro hair braided into a long braid. This is from Germany. This is that master race that Hitler was talking about. Almost all of these coat of arms that I found are from Germany, which really ties it all together to Hitler and why he was so obsessed with this race, so obsessed with these people or this particular line of Moors. Black people with blonde hair. Here we see another depiction. Black man with a crown on his head, blonde beard, just like the first one that we looked at. Another depiction of a Moorish black woman with her swarthy black melanated skin, a crown on her head, and blonde hair. We see the one at the top with the long blonde hair and her swarthy melanated skin. And then we see down here below another black woman, black swarthy, deeply melanated skin and her blonde hair flowing out from under her crown. Here we have another depiction of a black woman with a crown on her head and a blonde afro under that crown. This is a depiction from Germany. You can see the old German written around these coats of arms. This is from the 1500s, I believe. And we see yet another, once again, noble black woman with a crown on her head, and they drew her hair in what looks like an afro or some curls, blonde as ever, sticking out from under her crown. Look how swarthy they made her skin. Look how black and melanated they made her skin. These are the people that Hitler was talking about. He wasn't talking about blonde hair, blue-eyed white people, because y'all had those traits second and we had them first. Look how swarthy they made her skin. Then they drew the blonde yellow hair, the blonde yellow curls or afro, or could be a braid, I guess. Either way, her hair is yellow or blonde, and her skin is very deeply, richly melanated and swarthy. She's a blonde-haired Moorish noble. Another depiction of a noble Moor. This is also in Germany. It looks like it says Van Moorburg. Moor, he's a Moor, a blackamoor. We see his dark brown, swarthy, melanated skin and his blonde hair. Another black melanated queen depicted with a crown on her head and blonde hair underneath said crown. This is also Germany. Here we have another swarthy melanated queen and Moorish black noble from medieval Germany. Crown on her head. She's got a red crown and she's got blonde hair underneath said crown. All these depictions are from medieval Germany. Look at that blonde hair. These are the real life Targaryens. This is where they got the Targaryens from. Here at the top, we see the old German, and then yet another depiction of a black woman, a noble black woman, or Mooress, with her swarthy black melanated skin and blonde hair. Hitler was not talking about white people or Caucasians when he was referring to that Aryan race with blonde hair and blue eyes. When he was talking about those superior people, that superior race, that master race, those Aryans, he was talking about Moors, or black people, black men and black women with blonde hair and blue eyes. And those Aryans with their blonde hair and blue eyes were primarily from the area of the world, or the area of Europe that he was from, the Austria, Germany, Switzerland area. All of these coats of arms come from Austria, Germany, Switzerland. I think a few were from Belgium, but all of these swarthy Moors we're seeing with their blonde hair and their blue eyes that were so prevalently depicted in the Middle Ages, these are those blonde hair, blue-eyed people that Hitler was talking about. Hitler, the swarthy, dark-skinned Nordic Moor. He was referring to these blonde-haired, blue-eyed Moors, Negroes, black people. Yet another depiction from Germany. We've got the Lion of Judah down there on the bottom left. And then we see another royal, swarthy Moorish woman, crown on her head, swarthy black melanated skin, and her blonde braids under her crown. These are the real Targaryens. Those Targaryens in Game of Thrones, they depict them with that white blonde hair and those purplish blue eyes. Yeah, they got that from real history. Because the entertainment industry, all these movies and Hollywood and TV and stuff, that's just whitewashed black history that they sell to you with entertainment. The Targaryens in Game of Thrones are based off of these black, swarthy, Negro melanated Moors that had blonde hair and blue eyes. Those Targaryens in Game of Thrones are based off of that blonde hair, blue-eyed Negro master race that Hitler was talking about. And last but not least, we have yet another German medieval depiction. I see 1340 written up there along with the old German. Interestingly enough, I see Jacob, which these people were descendants of Jacob. They were Israelites, not Africans. They were descendants of Shem, not Ham. So we see up there in the old German 1340 and the word Jacob. Very interesting. And then, of course, another black woman, another Mooress or Moorish woman with her brown, swarthy, melanated skin and blonde hair. Oh, actually, I just noticed this on the bottom, 1560. So this is not from 1340. It's from 1560. And then we zoom in here. Black Moorish queen, brown skin, swarthy skin, and her blonde ponytail there. So hopefully this video didn't end up being too long, but it's a mind-blowing topic nonetheless, because it is so far from what we're taught in the public school system, or as it should be called, the public fool system. Hitler was not a Caucasian. He was a swarthy, dark-skinned, swarthy-faced blackamoor from Austria, which is right next to Germany. Germany being the primary country where all of these blonde-haired, blue-eyed Moors were from. And these blonde-haired, blue-eyed Moors, these were the Aryans or master superior race that Hitler was truly talking about. He wasn't talking about white people. He wasn't talking about Caucasians. Y'all didn't even have these traits first. You're a genetic mutation, and all of your DNA, all of your traits that you display through your genetics, you had to get from a Negro man and woman. Because the Negro man and woman, we are the original DNA. Everything else is a mutation. So blonde hair and blue eyes, black people or Negroes had those traits first. Hitler was not a white man, he was a blackamoor. And the blonde hair, blue-eyed Aryans that he was referring to were Negroes. They were black people with their brown, swarthy, melanated skin, and they had blue eyes and blonde hair. And those swarthy blonde Aryans is where they got the inspiration for the House Targaryen from in Game of Thrones. Getting one last look at this tapestry from the 1400s, 1450s, I think. I think this one is from 1455, from Germany, depicting a black, swarthy king and queen with crowns on their head, blue eyes, and blonde hair. This is the people that Hitler was truly talking about. So anyway, y'all, this is a really fascinating topic. I mean, it's mind-blowing, like I said, because it's so far from anything that we're taught. It is just completely to the left when it comes to, you know, what we're taught in what's supposed to be history class, especially as black people. But this is the truth. I mean, you saw the depictions, you saw the historical documentation describing Hitler as being a swarthy-faced black man. And we went over all of these historical depictions of these black people, these Negroes with their blonde hair. So we've once again debunked more of the Caucasians' lies and fables using historical documentation and historical depictions. Hitler was a swarthy blackamoor, and the Aryan master race he was referring to were black people or Negroes with blonde hair and blue eyes. So what does the white man do? He takes that history, he whitewashes it, and then he puts it right in your face, the whitewashed version, right in your face via the Targaryens in Game of Thrones. All of those people were Moors.